This tip is one of the biggest things that has helped me continue enjoying life even when I'm majorly stressed at work. It can be easy to forget that it is worth investing time and energy into things that don't bring you professional accomplishment. We can make a decision at every step when this happens to either sink into self-doubt or to see it as an opportunity for growth. Imposter syndrome is something I think that we've all felt to some degree at some point or another. It's something that I am currently dealing with because about 6 months ago, I started a job that is miles away from what I ever studied in school and is also very far away from where I thought I'd ever be. But life takes you unexpected places and you roll with the punches. So whether you are a fresh grad who is still adjusting to the workplace, someone who has just changed jobs recently, or are experiencing imposter syndrome in any other part of your life, I hope this video is helpful. A realization that I came to recently is that imposter syndrome will never go away. Or maybe more specifically, the circumstances creating the feeling from imposter syndrome will never go away. And that's because we will always feel like a beginner at something again at some point in our lives. This happens also with our career, right? As we advance, as we climb the ladder, we will be put into situations, we will be put into roles that we will definitely feel uncomfortable doing, at least at the start, because the work gets harder, expectations on us get higher, and the people who are our peers also increase in caliber. Which is why my first tip, or really a hard truth, is that being a beginner is a perpetual part of life. And we can make a decision at every step when this happens to either sink into self-doubt, which I know is very tempting and sometimes it's something that I do myself, or to see it as an opportunity for growth. Something that's helped me focus more on growth is to remember that courage is more important than confidence. This is something that I got from a book called Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss, where he goes around and interviews a bunch of famous people. And one of the questions that he asks his interviewees is, what advice would you give a very smart and driven college student who's about to enter the real world? And one of the interviewees replied, when you are operating out of courage, you are saying that no matter how you feel about yourself, your opportunities, the circumstances, or the outcome, you are going to take a risk, put yourself forward, and take a step towards what you want. You are not waiting for the confidence to mysteriously arrive. I now believe that confidence is achieved through repeated success at any endeavor. The more you practice doing something, the better you will get at it, and your confidence will grow over time. I remember my first week at work, I was tasked to do this thing called write a brief. And briefs are essentially documents with talking points and background information for meetings for our big bosses, who sometimes can be like ministers. I remember not really knowing what to put in it and not really having any idea how to do a brief properly. I did have reference documents, but I also didn't know how to update these documents because I had no background information. So of course I took really long to do my first brief, right? And there were a lot of corrections that had to be made by my supervisor. But it's something that gets easier with time. I mean, now 6 months into this job, I've done briefs many times and I can do a brief in half a day with hopefully the same level or even higher quality, right? Because I just have more information, more background information about the portfolio. But now I have a bunch of new tasks that have been assigned to me that I am completely unfamiliar with, and I have to start from scratch this process of getting used to a new type of work. But I know that in time things will get easier again as I do it more, right? It's really just practice. Practice makes better. So inevitably in this process of being a beginner, we will make mistakes, and we will make many of them. Some of them will be genuine errors that we didn't know about, wouldn't be our fault, and some will be avoidable errors, like spelling mistakes in an email. I've had way too many of those than I would like. The tendency here is then to fall into a shame memory cycle. And for those of you who have never heard of a shame memory, how I like to describe it is memories of a very embarrassing moment that keep coming back to haunt you. I've had several of these huge shame memories in my life. The one I always like to give as an example is this one time when I was in secondary school. I was in a five people audition, like it was a play, and I completely forgot my lines in front of like 90 people and a panel of judges. That memory came back to haunt me multiple times in my life after that year at random moments. And even though the example I gave you was really quite drastic, and I really hope nothing as embarrassing happens to you when you are at your work. But if it does, it's okay. We all make mistakes, and also we all have a tendency to remember even the smallest errors that we make. I remember there was once when I was talking to my boss and I was telling her, I'm sorry I always do this thing. I know sometimes it makes your life harder. And she looked at me and she said, I don't remember you ever doing that. And I was like, oh. Clear example here of the spotlight effect, which is thinking that everyone else is focusing on you when really you're the only one who's the center of your world. And everyone else is just doing their own thing, focusing on themselves. And you know what? There will probably always be people who judge you, right? For your mistakes, for the things you say, for the things you do, at work or otherwise. What can you do about it? Nothing, exactly. So, as cliched as it might sound, the more you are kind to yourself, the more you tell yourself, hey, I made a mistake, let's accept it, let's move on, the more the shame memory will lose its power. People say that imitation is the best form of flattery for a reason. Now, of course, you can't do this for all aspects of your job. I'm not asking you to go around plagiarizing other people's work. But what I am saying is that there are some aspects of your job where you can follow in the footsteps of other people with more experience. For example, I work in the government and there are very specific writing conventions here. When I first joined, I spent so much time just crafting emails. Well, honestly, I still do that now, but I spent even more time crafting emails at the start. Because I wasn't familiar with these conventions, I didn't know how to put across simple requests, just because I didn't know how to write in the way that was expected. So what I did was I created a little templates folder in my inbox, and whenever someone sent an email that I thought was well written, I would just move it in there and I would use those emails as references for my own writing. Emulating others is one of the ways that we can develop the skills that help us become more capable at our job. And when we feel more competent, there's less imposter syndrome. Let me share another quote from the Tribe of Mentors. Don't be intimidated by anything. In the vast majority of professions and vocations, the people who succeed are not any cleverer than you. The adult world is not full of gods, just people who have acquired skills and habits that work for them. I know that everyone knows, theoretically, that your life is more than your work. But in practice, when you spend most of your life in the office or in front of the computer, it can be easy to forget that other things matter. And it can be easy to forget that it is worth investing time and energy into things that don't bring you professional accomplishment. This tip is one of the biggest things that has helped me continue enjoying life even when I'm majorly stressed at work. It is so important to have something to look forward to on the weekends or in the evenings after work, to have communities that don't care about your rank or about how far along you are in your project. Maybe even to have a hobby that brings you joy and develops you physically, mentally, however so, that is different from your day job. I think having different identities reminds you that you are a multifaceted human being. Wow, what a concept. Can you tell I feel very strongly about this point? By the way, let me just say that there are many people who deliberately and actively choose to make their life their work. I have had a colleague tell me straight to my face that he's doing this intentionally, and I can understand where he's coming from. Everyone has different priorities, right? But I'm just here to remind you that you have a choice. I think when you're surrounded by other people who have made this decision to make their whole life about their work, it can be tempting to want to do the same. It can give you feelings of guilt when you're not working. I've experienced that myself firsthand. I think a harder question is definitely figuring out the percentage, figuring out, oh, how much of my life should be work without compromising my professional development. And at the same time, how much do I preserve for other things that matter? This is an ongoing conversation that we can continue to have in subsequent videos. I haven't figured it out myself, but it's okay. We'll get there. And maybe if we don't, we'll just figure out along the way what matters more. So this is the part of the video where I share some tips I know that will work in theory, but I haven't quite figured out how to implement myself. So maybe you can just try to take comfort in the fact that someone else is struggling with the same things. I'm told that one of the ways to do well at work is to identify your strengths. Identify your competitive advantage, your edge, your unique selling point. Call it however you will. I wish I could help you figure this out, but I don't even know my own. I don't even know my own strengths, man. I'm 6 months into my job. It still feels like I'm learning the ropes most days, but I can tell you what has helped me, and I think what has helped is to try and redefine what success at work means to me. At this point in my career, which is very early on, I try to take comfort in the fact that I find things easier than before, right? Like, I try to focus on my progression, on the fact that I can comprehend tasks that are given to me that I wasn't able to at the start when I first started, that there are things that I can do more easily now, that my knowledge is more on the topic, on the organization. Take comfort in these small things, focus on the journey and not the destination, as they always say. And on that note, I will wrap up this video by saying this. If you happen to be anywhere close to where I am in my career, which is really right at the start of it, having patience helps. I know I don't have a lot of it either, but it does help. Something I like to remind myself is that I have probably 30 to 40 more years left in my career, which is more than my entire lifespan combined, right? So if I learned in the first 20 plus so years of my life how to walk, how to talk, how to, I learned a couple other languages, learn how to essentially be a fully functioning human being. I think there is really no limit to what we can do professionally or otherwise in the next 30 to 40 years of our lives. So there's time, there's no need to be a fully evolved human now. And with that, I hope that this video helped, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Bye.